Thank you for staying with us. This is your daytime update on Newzroom Afrika, channel 405, as we continue focusing on the elections, the counting, and what those numbers really mean. Now, some pundits have been saying that the low voter turnout is a reflection of a political leadership crisis in the country. For more on Labour's view on the polls, we speak to SAFTU Secretary General, Mr. Zwelinzima Vavi. Baba Vavi, good to have you with us once again this afternoon. One of the main issues, and perhaps we can start here in our conversation this afternoon, is the incredibly low voter turnout. In the 2016 elections, yes, the turnout had declined, but this year it's sitting way below 50% at 46.68%. What could we attribute this to? What does this low voter turnout say to us?
Well, it says the overwhelming majority of South Africans, if you consider the fact that there are 40 million adults who should have been voting in this country, and that now we're talking about, what is the total number now, 810? That's a disaster. It's a collective voice by the poor in the main, the marginalized, the downtrodden, the unemployed, the poverty-stricken, the 14 million going to bed on an empty stomach every day, the face of inequalities, and the widening gap between the rich and the have-nots in our country. And their voice is, who is representing us? We have been voting since 1994, some of us. Consider every other key indicator. Our lives are taking a beating and they are worsening, and we are not interested anymore in the political games. We are therefore passing a vote of no confidence in the entire political system of our country that is not working for us, the poor. I think that's a message that is being communicated by the masses stay away from the polls, which didn't start in 2016. This has been going on since 1999. Soon as Tata Nelson Mandela left the scene, less interest in participating in the voting in our country.
And that's a very interesting observation that you make there, and I'd like to hop on that for a bit. 1994, before that, a huge euphoria in the country, first democratic election, South Africans looking forward to determining their future. What is it in 1996 already that you're saying that there was a downturn in the appetite that South Africans were having for voting? Was it a lack of understanding of what a vote actually really means, of the power of the vote, or was it a reaction to what South Africans were seeing and observing in their own lived experiences back then in the 90s as well?
Voting was a meaning of liberation. This was the trophy, the actual trophy, the victory, and what generations and generations have died for. And please never ever underestimate how important the ANC as an organization has been to those downtrodden masses of black people in particular. This was their organization in time, and Nelson Mandela was their ultimate icon. And they had a freedom charter dreams that when we free, they sang that the wealth of this country shall be shared amongst all the people. They said that our land will return, and that and they sang that the doors of learning and culture shall be opened, and that there shall be housing and comfort and peace for all. I mean, these were the things that drove the ANC members from 1955 or even before, if you go back to the African Games. Now comes 1994, and unfortunately all of those expectations are not realized in the practical sense. After the euphoria have died, unemployment moved from 16% in 1995 to now 44% if you consider the numbers of people who are too discouraged to keep on searching for employment opportunities. And that's record-breaking. 49% of black women in this country are unemployed. 74% of our youth are unemployed. 53% of the population in the Eastern Cape are unemployed, and the Northern Cape is sitting with 51% unemployment rate. 7 out of the 9 provinces are sitting with unemployment rate of more than 40%. You have 2/3 of the population living in dire poverty, below a upper bound level of poverty that is 50 rands a day. You have 14 million going to bed on an empty stomach. You have a dysfunctional public education system that sidelines 42% of the population and throw them into the streets, only to be trapped in a life of violence and drugs and desperation. And you have women unable to walk the streets, and you have a totally collapsing the criminal justice system, whose success rate is down to 15% and only 11% for the victims of rape.
Mr. Vavi, if I may...
Society is collapsing all around them. We are marching towards a failed state, and that they're going to be the main victims of that failed state.
If I may, Mr. Vavi, I'd like us to focus on this part of our conversation. You've given us the facts, you've given us the figures. But when we go back to the reasons why South Africans are choosing not to vote, do you think that South Africans were sold a pipe dream? Was this a false narrative that was endemic even in the very beginning stages of what voting is and what voting is all about?
Let me go back to the point that I was making. The ANC was their chosen weapon to realize the dream Nelson Mandela sold them, building a better life for all. There was no other organization. The ANC was simply uncontestable. And all of the parties celebrating this year knew the real meaning of what Oliver Tambo would have said, that only the ANC can defeat the ANC, no one else. We are right at that moment now, where the ANC took 27 years to defeat itself. No DA, no anybody else. It is the ANC that have put itself where it is today, all of its leaders collectively. That's the first point. The second point is that these disappointed expectations are real. Look, everybody had dreams. And when we were in the apartheid, as I once said this, we had dreams during the nightmare of apartheid. But then we are now in a democracy. We are in a nightmare during our dreams. And our dreams was always about there shall be decent work for all, we shall own property, and we shall not be the face of propertyless. We will take our land back. We will ensure that our mines and industries work for us, the marginalized. We will be participants in this economy and not sitting at home following the sun around our houses or our parents' homes. We shall be liberated. And liberation was never a slogan for the black people. Liberation meant that our lives will change for the better. It is right at that moment now where the majority of our people are saying that, but our lives have not changed for the better. Instead, we are seeing more crisis amongst black townships. Look at the face of Alexander. Nobody said that Alexander will change overnight to become something, but everybody expected that there will be no sewage in the streets. There will be no loads and loads of rubbish in the corners of the street, and that women and the children shall be free to play in the streets. There shall be parks where they will play and take out families. There shall be work close by where they are residing and all of that. When those things are not happening, not only in Alexander, but across all the black residential areas, and when they have been disappointed by their prime organization, the ANC, their response for now is We will stay at home, vote, doesn't matter. We'd rather be playing football on that day, and we will not, we're not shifting our loyalty yet. We're still loyal to the ANC, but we are not voting for these guys. Not now, not again.
Would it be accurate, Mr. Vavi, for one to say that those who are of that mindset would rather say, I am more loyal to the African National Congress than I am to my own life and my own circumstance? Because if it means that I've got to leave the African National Congress in order to change my circumstance, I would rather stay with the circumstance and stay with the thorn in my foot than actually leave the party. Would that be a correct summary in your view?
I normally call it the dangerous double L, love and loyalty. And the love and loyalty, even in our personal relationships, makes you stupid, isn't it? And makes you to ask yourself at night, but how do I get anything from this loyalty? And I think the majority of the black people are trapped there until somebody out there, and that person doesn't exist for now, can win their confidence, be credible, speak about their plight consistently, and make a connection between their today and the dreams that they had in 1994, and inspire them to dream again, even in the nightmare they living currently under. And unfortunately, that's not where we are now. For example, the point that we are making in SAFTU is, unless you can change the economic structure of this country, unless you can overall and ditch the unworking neoliberalism austerity programs that are hurting the poor through the budget cuts and all of that, unless you can industrialize again and grow the economy through redistribution of wealth, to change, nothing is going to change for the poor.
Mr. Vavi, I thank you so much for your insight this afternoon. He is SAFTU's Secretary General, Mr. Zwelinzima Vavi. Just rounding that up, well, for today, the daytime update. And what has become quite clear is that even though the African National Congress is below its 50%, still South Africans have given it an opportunity to try again. Will the election promises that were made during the campaign train be fulfilled in the years to come? Is this a call for the African National Congress to start delivering on the promises of the people, or will it be another vehicle to take South Africa to, quote-unquote, its promised land, that nostalgia and the wishes and desires that were there pre-1994?